This is Recovery Lifestyles with Carmel. Recovery Lifestyles is committed to raising awareness and ending stigmas surrounding addiction and mental health. Today I'll be chatting with Jen Elizabeth, who has dedicated her second chance at life to addiction recovery and healing from childhood traumas. She shares her story, the wreckage, and the reckoning as a way to keep the light on for anyone who is suffering under the darkness of silence. Jen is a recognized recovery speaker, writer, and blogger living in Southern California. Hey, Jen, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. So we're just walking in today on a heavy topic. I was thinking about that.
Yeah, my favorite thing to do, just get right in there.
Let's get into it. So we're going to talk about the mother wound. Where do you want to
Yes.
start? Where do you want to start?
Oh, there's so many things we could talk about. Let's see.
I better look at my time.
Yeah.
Keep track.
Yeah. Don't let me keep going. I'll just keep going on and on.
We can have like part 3, 4, 5, 6.
The whole show is a mother wound show. Hey, it's a good conversation. Let's see. I think let's talk about anger.
Yeah, but I think as well, in case anyone listening has not listened to the past interview, why don't you give them a rundown of your mother wound, where it came from.
Mother wound. So yeah, gosh. Well, I was born to a mother who knows nothing about what maternal love is, or love for herself, or love for anybody else. She is unfortunately severely mentally ill, diagnosed with all kinds of stuff. So I grew up begging for her love, begging for her approval, begging for her to spend time with me. And she just was not capable. And she was always trying to kill herself, and using scares of I'm going to kill myself. And it was my fault she was so upset. And I, a lot was put on my shoulders at 5, 6, 7, 8, and this behavior has never stopped. So I have had to detach from that relationship. But it is not because of my past with my mom. It is because it is a continual, this is just her behavior, and it carries on even to today. And I think that, it's not just my mother, because I don't think people that are abusive can carry out that behavior alone. They have what they call flying monkeys, or, there are people that are protecting them, or wanting to stick their head in the sand about that type of behavior. So it is also my dad and my brother. They are also abusive and dysfunctional and toxic, and in addictions. She's also in an addiction, a prescription addiction. And so the whole entire dynamic, and there's also some of their friends and a few of the family members, and nobody wants to. It is a hard pill to swallow, to know that, like her mother, or amazingly her mother and her sister are actually quite supportive of me. And I think it's because they have chosen to really look at the situation and really see that there's no way that a child can grow up in an environment that I grew up in and not be hurt by that. And not only be hurt by that, but it has shaped the way that I saw myself ever since I can remember. And that type of, conditioning, and grooming and all that stuff, it is very difficult to unlearn all that. And that has been a big mission for me now.
And so I just want to know, like, your aunt and her sister, I can't remember what you said.
My mom's sister and my mom's mom.
Oh, okay. And so were they kind of part of the chaos, like flying monkeys, as you would say? Like,
they had their heads in the sand. The thing is that in order for that I mean, the type of abuse that I grew up in was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It was, you know, it's something that cannot carry on unless other people are protecting it.
Okay. Yeah.
So what they did is, and what a lot of people do is they either are unaware. I believe my mom's sister and my mom's mom were, you know, unaware. We lived in another state for a while, and we lived far away when we both lived in California. I think a lot of people were unaware because here we paint this pretty picture. I never, sure as hell, never said anything.
Mm-hmm.
My dad protects all of it. And then my mom, of course, doesn't tell. So it was all happening behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But they were aware that my mom was suicidal a lot. I think, I'm pretty sure. But, you know, and they were aware that, you know, a lot of the hospital stays and I mean, they know my brother and my dad are addicts and my mom. So I think, you know, they are kind of seeing, and with my sharing, you know, you have to, in speaking your truth, you're going to have to know that some people are not going to want to fucking hear it, and they're not going to want to accept it. So you have to be ready to possibly lose those relationships, whether it be forever or for a short time. But man, it was killing me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't making anything better anyways to hold it all in. It wasn't changing anybody. It wasn't changing anybody else. So, I mean, it was time. It was time for me to tell my story, because if I didn't, I was just suffocating, and I took it all on myself.
Mm-hmm. So, and you're not alone in this. A part of this whole, and I mean, part of it is social media, having the opportunity to be out there. And I mean, there's boundaries there that should be followed. But I really think that, you know, we're beginning to realize, and the professionals, the doctors, the psychologists are realizing that there is power in telling your story. There cannot be healing when we continue to cover it up. In saying that, it's like generation after generation after generation are stuck in the cycle.
Oh,
and so,
for
sure, people like you and I who are going out there and talking about it and getting a lot of flack for it, you know, we're breaking that generational, I don't know, cycle, I guess. Curse kept coming to my mind, but cycle.
They call it a curse, but
it's
not really a curse. It's just dysfunction. You know, dysfunction births dysfunction. So, you know,
so it clearly didn't start with her. I mean, it had to have gone back, right? Something must have happened.
I think that, you know, she has clearly chemical imbalances going on, and she was always suicidal, and my mom, you know, has Munchausen syndrome. So that is also, I have a hard time saying she was suicidal, because what happens with Munchausen is they create a lot of illnesses in themselves for that attention.
Okay.
It becomes their identity. So it was more scares of suicide. They were like, she would never leave when no one was home. She would leave when I was home and slam the door shut when she was going to walk out. You know, like, she never tried to sneak out to go kill herself. She made it very apparent that's what she was doing. So that I would stop her. And I was a child, and I would try to stop her. And she would mock me. And why are you making such a big deal? You're so emotional. Go back inside. I'd like, Mom, please don't do this to me when you know, and I mean, I could go on and on. It was just so terrible. And, but she never, you know, I don't think that people who are truly suicidal just for the sake of being suicidal, or depression or whatever, I don't think they do that for attention. I'm not going to try and say that. But with Munchausen syndrome, that is very typical. It is less the desire to kill yourself and more the desire to get the attention that you are needing to complete your identity, to make you feel something. My mom is seeking love in all the wrong ways. That's really ultimately what it is.
And she's go ahead.
She's seeking approval and acceptance, and by being, oh, I can't believe you've survived all this. And I can't believe, oh, you poor thing. And, oh, all this, she wants all this, approval and, whatever. And it's so sad because it's so abusive. She's abusive to herself, and her whole life has been like that.
So, and I'm assuming you followed in those patterns. That's what you were taught.
I was taught that, like I've spoken to you about before, it does not matter what kind of mess is going on, no matter what you're going through on the inside, nobody confronts it. Don't you dare talk about it. Don't you dare think about it. Confront it. I don't care. Don't tell anybody about it, because all that matters is how we look on the outside. So I was taught perfectionism. I was taught I was not worth anything. I was taught that even my own mother didn't want to live for me. I was taught that I was not quiet enough. I was too emotional. All that stuff. I was taught, and then my dad never protected us or protected me. Never, ever once. He never sat me down and said, this is not your fault. Your mom has something wrong with her, or your mom is, that none of this is your fault, or, never once.
So I have a quick question for you. I know like a lot of the listeners can relate to what you're saying, and they too may be out there trying to seek that approval that somebody just tells them, yes, this is truth. This is what's going on.
Yeah.
I guess it's a two-parter. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is, why is your dad not standing up and doing his part?
Right.
Yep. And I guess second, how do you even get past this? Like,
right.
How do you realize that this is truth? No, this actually did happen. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. Well, my dad, do you want me to speak as a woman I am today, or speak? The woman I am today knows that my dad is a codependent nightmare mess.
Yeah.
And my dad does not have any self-worth of his own. And he is an absolute, he protects the mess and has grown to protect his own mess. He is an addict. He takes lots of medication to survive that house he lives in. He does not like to confront anything. So my dad even had an idea that I was being molested and did not say anything. Because
that could be so going back to being a child, I mean, that could be so confusing. Like,
yeah, well, it pissed me the fuck off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's, especially now that I have children.
Oh, I know.
Because, the thing is that the way that my mother treated us and treated herself, and that my dad just allowed it, protected it, never came to our aid. My brother is also struggles with mental illness, and I'm kind of starting to see that my brother is also extremely traumatized by the way we grew up.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, my brother's manifested it into he's a very violent, dangerous person. So he is one that I'm most fearful of. He's threatened to kill my children, my family. He's the one that gets out of control. He's beaten my dad up severely. And he lives in the house with them today.
Yeah. Even after all of that?
After everything. Yep.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
He's threatened my life, threatened my children's life, after he's abused my dad, when my dad had to try to sneak out of his own apartment. Yeah. Because my dad doesn't confront anything. He's terrified of confrontation. And, for a long time, I was not sure what was real. And for a long time, I believed what I was taught, that I was overreacting and I was emotional. And I was perceiving things from a weak perception, that I was just a weak girl, and I had I needed to toughen up, and that this wasn't that big of a deal, and none of that should have even affected me. And don't you dare blame your choices on that, which I do not. However, I have every right to speak about my pain.
Yes.
But I'm not blaming the way I've chose to numb that pain. That is all on me. But there is a huge important part for me to heal from all that I need to speak about where that pain came from. So, and there has been, and I think it's important to say that there, I was taught growing up, and you will hear this from lots of people, even people that I happen to respect a lot, that anger is poison.
Yeah.
That you should not feel angry, that anger is just going to poison your life, and you need to let it go, and you need to forgive. And so we shove anger down, and we're like, we don't want to be angry because that is unchristian, or it's unforgiving, or you're never going to be able to grow or heal if you feel angry. Well, no, let me tell you what killed me, almost killed me, was ignoring that anger and shoving it down and feeling that I had no right to be angry. And, here I'm an adult now. How dare I be still hurt by what happened to me growing up? And
it almost takes away, like, what happened growing up, it doesn't count. Or,
right.
That responsibility on the parent, it's no more because you're an adult now. But it's like, where did the cycles come from?
It is important to figure out where the root of this pain is coming from. And it is important to, and I've said this before, and I say this in my book, that I'm not trying to shame anybody, but it is important that I release my shame.
Yeah.
It is not my responsibility to make my mom happy.
Yeah.
And it never was. And it is not my responsibility to try and fix the dynamic that goes on over there, and it never was. What is my responsibility is how I choose to live in my life today and the mother that I am. So how do I do that?
Yeah.
How do I heal inside? How do I reparent myself and redirect my thinking and the way that I have been taught and shown to believe about the things that I was taught and shown to believe about myself and about women and about motherhood and about relationships and what that all means? How do I move forward? How do I, and that's my responsibility, is to do all that. Now, in order to do that, I have to heal my wound. I have to speak about it, because silence is deadly. And so in speaking about it, I need to accept that I feel anger. I am angry that the abuse was allowed to go on for so long. I am angry that the abuse was protected. I am angry that the abuse still is protected. I am angry about a lot of stuff, but as long as I don't sit in that anger, because what's right underneath the anger is a lot of grief. I'm heartbroken.
Yeah.
And my heartbreak is so much more manageable today. But if we're speaking about when I first started facing all this stuff, I was in an ocean of grief. I was so heartbroken over all the things that had happened to me, the things that I'd been through. I was heartbroken about the mom that I had. I was heartbroken that my daddy never protected me. I was heartbroken when I found out that he had an inkling I was molested and never stopped it or said anything. I was heartbroken about the ways that I had abused myself, how I used to believe that I was worthy of being treated. I was, that's the thing they say, and I believe this to be true. When you sit with your anger and you use anger as a coping skill, it's only because anger is the best tool to shove down grief.
So I want to interject really quick and just say,
Yeah.
if anybody listening is having any type of post-traumatic stress from this conversation, because I think it's really important that we address that, because this is a heavy, heavy topic. And unfortunately, it's not something that is really talked about. So what would you recommend that person doing right now?
I love when you ask me these questions. I'm like, yeah, it is, I talk about this stuff all the time. So I guess it's important that you remind me that it is heavy because this is like, we could be talking about grocery shopping right now.
This is reality.
Really, this is reality. This is a reality that I have been living, this is a truth that I've been speaking for a while now. So it is important for me to remember that, please, you don't have to concern yourself with speaking your truth at this time. All you need, that is down the road, and everybody has a different level of what that means for them. So the important thing is learning to sit with it. And that can cause a lot of PTSD. That can cause a lot of feelings. Can be very overwhelming. And I really, really suggest, depending on the level of trauma that you're trying to heal from, and depending on how long it has been that you have been sticking your head in the sand because it is just too much. I am very careful because I do think that you may want to see a therapist or a counselor, or find a group of women that you feel comfortable with, whether that be at church or whatever, whatever you feel, in an online group, whatever it is. Sometimes these are too heavy of things to be walking through alone.
Yes. And
you don't have to. Because although, yes, it is something that is not mainstream, but it is a conversation that is being had, because people with major degrees are realizing the importance of reparenting and the importance of childhood trauma. I mean, there is a stronger link between childhood trauma and addiction than obesity and diabetes.
Yeah.
It is huge. Childhood trauma creates eating disorders and depression and addictions and perfectionism and all these things that just debilitate our lives. And if you don't face it, what's going to happen is you're just going to repeat it. You're going to take on some of that, and you're just going to repeat it, and then you're going to spread that sickness to your own children.
Yeah.
And you may have already. But it's never too late I'll tell you now that I am 42. And if my mother or father or brother or whatever would take even a step to heal their lives, I would probably fall apart and cry and bawl my head off. I would be so moved.
But that takes a long time to get to that place, because I feel in the recovery process, at first that anger sometimes goes to grief.
Right.
It kind of goes to like maybe revenge, or like all of a sudden wanting to compulsively show them, like, look what you did.
Oh yeah. I tried.
That's another loop, because these people they don't look at their stuff. And
I tried all that. Yeah. I tried all that. I was like, I went through a good couple of years where I did not hold anything back. I called them on every step of the way of all their shit. I wanted to show them everything that's ever happened. And I think that was an important part of my process, because I hadn't spoken about anything in so many years.
Yeah.
That I just let it out. And what happened? Nothing. All it did was destroy me. It just destroyed my whole, because I can't.
You're not being validated. You're not being validated either.
No.
Once again, you're being told that that didn't
ridiculous.
Yes.
I'm being ridiculous. Yes. And what are you trying to do? Say that's our fault that you became a heroin addict?
So again, you walked through this with a therapist and with a support group. Yep.
I did. Yeah. And everybody's got, a lot of a different way. And I think that therapy is great. And I haven't been to a therapist in a while, but, I do talk to a lot of people that are therapists. And, there's so many ways and methods out there, and like, daily reflections and journaling and things you can learn about reparenting and about childhood trauma and about the mother wound. It is out there. Please, that we are out there.
Yeah.
And we can all speak, I never want to tell someone an exact blueprint of what to do, because I think we're all different, but one thing you need to do is know that it's going to be messy for a while, and facing that and realizing that you are allowed to feel everything you're feeling, and you're not making it up.
And you're allowed to be heard. And I think that's the important part. Mm-hmm. And so if anybody listening right now wants to reach out to you, what's the best way that they could do that?
Oh gosh, I'm on all the social medias, resurrection with a K _of_me for Instagram. You can DM me. I'm on Twitter, same name, Facebook, same name. Any DM, I answer all my DMs. Like I will talk with you. I know a ton of women that are doing this work. I can direct you to some communities, it's amazing what the small little step forward will do for you. Even if it's just sending me a DM out of curiosity, maybe who do I think you should follow? Maybe, who that talks about the motherhood, just a little step to see that the world is actually acknowledging what's going on. You may never get that acknowledgement from your family, but you will get the acknowledgement that these things do affect us. Yeah. And they affect the women we become. They affect the mothers that we become. And then it just carries on. And I don't want my children to suffer. And I know that any mother out there that is somewhat, authentically healthy, they don't want their children to suffer either.
For sure.
It's, we can't hope our children do it different. We got to do it different.
Yeah. Yeah. And isn't that the miracle, I guess, of the platforms and the social media and shows like this, is that there is a place where you can be seen. There is a place where you can be heard, and you not feel alone, because when we're isolated and alone, that's when the confusion comes in. I mean, so don't, I want to say, so don't do that to yourself, but right. Like I did it for over a decade, maybe longer. Like,
please,
it was all in my head for sure. So,
and it is, and it is a little bit disheartening when you do get validated, because for me, there's always, and even to this day, even though, I've come so far, there's always a teeny tiny part in my heart that I would love to all of a sudden discover that I have been mistaken, that my perception is wrong, that my family was never like that it was just the way that I saw things. And I would love to find out that my mom does love me the way that a mother should love her daughter.
Ooh, so that's big right there. The way that a mother should love you.
Yeah, because I'm not saying
that's huge.
Yeah, that's the people say, but your mother must love you. I'm sure she loves me.
She just doesn't know how. As
far as she can love herself, which I'll tell you is not much.
Yeah.
So I hate to say it like this, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
I'm worthy of more.
Yeah.
And as a child, I was worthy of more. And so, just because she may, quote unquote, love me, it does not mean that it was an acceptable form of love.
Yes.
That's
just huge. That's just huge. I know that there are people listening that need to hear that. So.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. We're already at that time. I think we have to go on to episode 3, the mother wound.
Oh yeah.
Now we're out of time again. But
I'm telling you. Yeah.
No, go for it.
Whenever. Yeah. I really, anytime. I just, it is important, because what's more important than the mothers that we become? And even if even if like they say, I'll end my little spiel with this, but the saying that, be who you needed when you were younger. I used to think that meant, or only meant, be the kind of mother that I never had to my children. But what I'm finding out for myself and from a lot of people is it also means be the mother to yourself that you never had. When you reparent yourself and you start going back and you start revalidating, reaffirming, reloving, giving yourself to self, it's called self-worth for a reason. Relearning to bring yourself back up through the years. What happens is a shift happens and it kind of like transforms into the woman that you are today.
Yeah.
So be the mother that you never had to yourself first. And I promise you, it will transpire. I'm reparenting myself. And as I do that, I'm changing, because it's like as if that I was raised in a whole environment.
Yes.
So.
And isn't it cool when you step into that place of peace, when you're like, yeah, I am worth it, you know?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. It does happen.
It does happen. And if you slip out, it's okay if you slip out of it and you just remind yourself.
Yeah. And that's what the community is for. That's what people like us are for. So
amen.
Jen, thanks again. It's always a pleasure. And
anytime.
Yeah. And I'll have
hopefully I don't die in the earthquakes.
Yeah. Yeah. How's the earthquakes right now?
So far, so good.
Yeah. So I'll have your links put under this show, so people can connect with you, and they can also purchase your book, because I love your book. I think I sat down. I don't even remember. For some reason, I didn't have a toddler running around. I sat down and I just read it. I couldn't stop reading. So I highly recommend people go out and purchase that, and I'll have the link available for that as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
You're the best.
Thanks. I like you. I kind of think you're cool too.
Yeah,
we're doing all right over here.
We are, man.
Just talking about a bunch of stuff that people are like, ugh.
I know. I feel so. I'm like gonna go. I'm gonna get off here and eat lunch. But I'm like, these poor. I do. Yeah, I feel mad love to everybody that's just facing this, because it's going to be a rough road, but the freedom is indescribable.
Amen to that.
I promise you.
Okay.